Millions of TV viewers thought Vivian Vance was just Lucille Ball's happy sidekick on one of the most popular sitcoms of all time. But behind the perfectly timed jokes and easy chemistry was a woman who had been through fear, shame, emotional breakdowns, and secrets that almost destroyed her before she became famous. Later, Vivian Vance said that the real story behind the show was much more complicated than people thought. It involved jealousy, tension behind the scenes, extreme pressure, and even violence in her own marriage. People began to realize that the actress who played Ethel Mertz might have been the toughest person on the whole set once the truth came out. Before Vivian Vance became one of the most recognizable faces on TV, she was already going through tough times that not many people around her fully understood. Her family was very strict, and her dreams of becoming an actress were seen as almost a moral failure as she grew up in Kansas. May, her mother, thought that respectable women didn't belong in the theater. Vivian later said that shame, fear, and nervousness shaped a lot of her childhood. As she wrote in her unpublished book, her mother told her over and over again not to attract male attention and made her feel bad about doing normal things like bare legs in public. In the end, Vivian told her mother, "I was a bad girl." She thought about those words for a long time. The fact that she saw chaos in her own home made things even worse. Through the years, Vivian saw her mother have several mental breakdowns. As a result, she became increasingly sure that the same thing would happen to her. She felt scared everywhere she went. She later admitted that she kept her name and address on a piece of paper in her purse because she was afraid she would go crazy in public and forget who she was. Even after she ran away from home as a teen and got married for a short time when she was 19, the fear never really went away. But Vivian kept trying to become an actress. She worked for different theater companies in New Mexico before moving to New York. There, she had a hard time as a chorus girl for many years before finally building a successful career on Broadway. She worked with famous actors like Danny Kaye and Eve Arden, which showed that she was much more skilled than most people thought at first. Her work was getting better, but her emotional health was slowly getting worse below the surface. In 1945, everything fell apart in a hotel room in Chicago. Vivian later told the truth about what happened. In simple terms, she said, "I flipped." The stress made her unable to sleep or calm down, and she was afraid to leave her room or stay in it. She said that her heartbeat was roaring in her ears and that the walls felt like they were closing in on her. She thought she might lose her mind for good when the breakdown got so bad. Therapy is what saved her. At a time when getting help for mental health problems was still seen as very bad, Vivian told everyone that therapy helped her get her life back on track. She didn't keep the experience a secret forever. Instead, she became an advocate for psychiatry and even sat on the board of the National Mental Health Association. Being honest would become one of the most important parts of her life, because even though Vivian Vance became famous as TV's funniest best friend, few people knew how much pain and fear she had been through before she went on the show that changed her life forever. Vivian Vance was already a seasoned actress when she got to the La Jolla Playhouse in California. She had been on stage for years. She wasn't a newbie who no one knew who was waiting for a lucky break. She had built an image as a serious professional through tough theater tours, Broadway shows, and relationships that were always falling apart. Desi Arnaz, Mark Daniels, and Jess Oppenheimer all paid close attention when they saw her appear on stage in 1950 because of her reputation. When they were looking for someone to play Ethel Mertz, they saw something special in Vivian right away. Desi knew that having great comedic timing wasn't enough for the part. The person who played Ethel had to do something to make Lucy Ricardo look even funnier without becoming invisible. The job was quickly given to Vivian, but when she got there was a big problem. Ball did not want her to be there. Ball's first thought about Ethel was that she was an older, heavier, and less attractive lady. While Vivian was younger than expected, she had been on stage for years and was very glamorous. Several people who worked on the project say that Lucille was afraid that people would compare the two women on TV. Later, Frank Castelluccio said that Lucille had a Hollywood mentality from a time when leading actors didn't hang out with women they thought were too attractive. It is said that Lucille fought hard against the casting decision at first. Vivian could have easily felt ashamed of what was happening. When she finally got the biggest job of her career, she found out that the show star didn't like having her there. Vivian could have caused trouble in public, but she stayed professional and focused on showing what she could do through acting. She got something that most artists don't get. When two comedians work together, they can only do well if they trust each other totally. That trust grew over time. Lucille quickly found out that Vivian wasn't trying to steal the show or get more attention. In fact, Vivian changed everything about herself for the part. To play Ethel Mertz, she put on weight, changed how she looked, and voluntarily toned down her natural glitz. Later, Lucille told her she thought it was great and that Vivian's dedication helped make the show seem real. Lucille also trusted Vivian to work with her on creative projects behind the scenes. Wanda Clark, who worked closely with Lucille Ball, later said that Lucille thought Vivian was one of the best script doctors she had ever met. Two women would stay for hours to rewrite lines, fix timing problems, and make jokes better together if a scene wasn't working. Vivian later talked about how tough the process got. We rehearsed 3 days, then sat in a room sometimes until 4 o'clock in the morning and fought out every word, every scene, she said. A lot of people were surprised to find that the set wasn't nearly as controlled as they thought it would be. Vivian said that there wasn't a boss during production because everyone was always giving ideas. The cast and crew talked about scenes, comedy rhythms, and speech choices all the time until they were sure that everything worked perfectly. People fell in love with Lucy and Ethel's relationship as I Love Lucy became one of the most popular TV shows in the United States. People watching didn't fully understand how hard Vivian Vance worked to make that relationship feel real. Later, she said that the comedy wasn't easy in any way. The group practiced all the time, sometimes doing the same things over and over for days, until every move looked natural enough to look like it happened on its own on camera. It was important to Vivian and Lucille Ball that the audience thought the scenes were brand new, even though they had practiced them behind closed doors for 72 hours straight. One of the reasons the show was so popular was that the actors paid such close attention to every detail. Vivian once said that the players always tried to make the characters feel like real people, even though the show often went off the rails. That was very important to her because she knew that comedy only works when people believe the relationships that are being joked about. People working on the show started to see her and Lucille as creative twins because of how close they became to each other. Vivian said out loud that Lucille pushed her more than anyone else in her career. An adult Vivian said, "She dragged me along and taught me a lot of things I was too lazy to do." But while her relationship with Lucille got a lot better, her relationship with William Frawley stayed tense from the start. Frawley, who played Fred Mertz, is said to have heard Vivian talking about his age early in the production and never fully forgave her. People thought Fred and Ethel's fights were just great acting, which made their hostility one of the strangest hidden truths of the show. A lot of the anger they felt toward each other was real. People who worked on the show say that William liked making loud noises backstage to scare Vivian and playing mean jokes on her whenever he could. She joked that he said, "She's one of the best girls to come out of Kansas, but I often wish she'd go back there." Even though the tension could have hurt the show, both stars were very professional once the camera started rolling. Later, Michael Stern said that even though they didn't like each other personally, they formed a strange respect for each other at work over time. People say that Lucille Ball herself saw that William would still ask Vivian first whenever he needed something during production, and Vivian would do the same for him. They were never really friendly off screen, but they were always professional with each other. Hidden behind the scenes, Vivian was slowly becoming one of the most important creative forces. Later, Paige Peterson said that people today forget that Vivian was already a well-known Broadway performer before she started working on TV. She was able to set up Luce's jokes without drawing attention to herself. Peterson said Vivian never thought of herself as second fiddle. She knew that her timing, reactions, and ability to keep her emotions in check were what made Luce's chaos funnier. Peterson also thought that the women in the movie were equal. She said that Vivian knew that comic partnerships need balance, not competition. Lucy gave scenes a lot of energy, and Ethel kept them grounded with realism and timing. The show would not have worked without that balance. Every week, Millions of people watched Ethel Mertz and laughed at her, but behind closed doors, Vivian Vance was going through one of the worst times of her life. Although her fame brought her attention, money, and an Emmy Award, it also made problems in her marriage to actor Philip Ober even worse. Vivian's fame grew across America, and Lucille Ball says Ober became very jealous. It was said that the more she loved him, the more angry and controlling he became at home. Lucille later talked about what she saw in a very honest way. After many years, she said of Ober, "He was terrible. He used to hit her and loved making her look bad." Ball said that Vivian would sometimes show up to work severely hurt. In one case, she reportedly showed up to work with a black eye. That moment changed everything for Lucille. She had been watching her best friend's mental health worsen during the marriage for years. Ball says that she finally told Vivian, "I will divorce him if you don't." The saddest thing about the story is that Vivian often hid her pain by being funny and professional. Even though her personal life was falling apart, she was ready, sharp, and willing to work with others on the set. Later, people on the cast and crew said she was a perfectionist who never let her personal problems get in the way of work. People watching at home didn't know that one of TV's funniest women was going back every night to a relationship she said was abusive and making her very sad. Vivian stayed in the marriage for a lot longer than most people thought she would. Part of that was because she had been afraid and uneasy since she was a child. Because of years of emotional abuse from her mother and past mental health problems, she was very afraid of being alone and unstable. Also, it was much harder to leave a marriage in the 1950s than it is now, especially for public figures whose careers depended on keeping up a good image. Vivian finally hit her limit, though. After years of being emotionally drained, she finally broke up with Philip Ober for good in 1959. People who knew her well noticed an immediate change in her mood after the divorce, which was one of the most important choices she had ever made. Vivian seemed calmer and more sure of herself outside of work for the first time in years. She met John Dodds, a literary editor, soon after. He would become her fourth and last husband. Her relationships before she married Dodds were full of chaos, but her marriage to him was stable. They were together until Vivian's death, and friends later said that she finally seemed truly happy in her later years. In a strange twist, Vivian kept saying she never wanted fame, even though I Love Lucy made her one of the most famous women in America. She once said, "I don't want to be a star. Most of the ones I know are too unhappy." The way she said that showed something important about her. Vivian cared a lot more about the work than the attention it got from celebrities. Over the years, Vivian Vance slowly pulled away from the chaos of Hollywood and spent more time in Northern California, where she eventually settled down in Belvedere. By that time, she had been through an emotional breakdown, public pressure, a violent marriage, and years of endless TV work that linked her identity to Ethel Mertz. But Vivian didn't spend her later years desperately trying to stay relevant or get attention like many early TV stars did. After some time, her friends said she finally seemed to be happier with herself. One person who became very close to Vivian during that time was Paige Peterson, whose family let the actress stay in their Belvedere home. In the end, Peterson said that Vivian was like a second mother to her. Vivian was kind, smart, funny, and very loyal to the people she loved, she remembered. Most importantly, Peterson saw for himself that Vivian's friendship with Lucille Ball stayed strong even after I Love Lucy ended. Peterson says that people today often get the relationship between the two women wrong because of rumors that they were jealous of each other and competed for years. In reality, she thought they had a lot of love, respect, and admiration for each other. Peterson said Vivian never felt like Lucille was more important than her because she knew how important her part was in the comedy duo. Viv knew exactly what she brought, Peterson said. That confidence was important because Lucy Ricardo never saw Ethel as just something in the background. The comedy was built around Vivian's reactions, timing, and emotional support. The show would not have been able to keep going without her. The last few days of Vivian's life were the last proof of their bond. Vivian was told she had breast cancer in the early 1970s. The disease slowly spread to her bones, making her weak and in pain all the time. It was clear she was going to die by August 1979. Lucille Ball went to Belvedere to say goodbye to her. Peterson later remembered the visit in very sad ways. Vivian was lying on a couch inside the house while Lucille and she ate lunch and talked alone for hours. Both women knew this was probably going to be the last time they talked. Even though Peterson stayed close by in case Vivian needed help, the most vivid thing she remembered was Lucille Ball leaving the house afterward. "The pain on her face shook me to my core," she replied. People said Lucille was crying so hard she could hardly speak. The woman who once didn't want Vivian to cast her was heartbroken at the thought of losing her after decades of friendship, success, fights, practices, and personal problems. A few days after that, Vivian Vance died at the age of 70. Lucille Ball still talked deeply about her closest TV partner years after they broke up. She once said, "No one could replace Vivian Vance in my life. She was the greatest partner anyone could ever have." That statement had weight because Lucille Ball worked with a lot of performers over the course of her career, but Vivian was the only one who was truly important to her until the end. What did you find out about Vivian Vance and the real story behind I Love Lucy that surprised you the most? Write your answer in the box below. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like, follow, and turn on notifications to get more Hollywood secrets and old TV shows.